5 months without a job. That's how long I'd been sitting at my parents' dining room table, scrolling through job listings and sending out resumes that disappeared into the void. But what my family didn't know was that while they were laughing at my unemployment, I was building something bigger than any of them could imagine. My name is Melissa Taylor, and this is the story of how I turned their mockery into the sweetest form of revenge. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The sound of my uncle's laughter cut through the family dinner like a knife. So, Melissa, any luck with the job search? Uncle Rob's question wasn't a question at all. It was bait, and everyone at the table knew it. I forced a smile as I pushed the mashed potatoes around my plate. Still looking, I said, keeping my voice level. The market is tough right now. The market is always tough for some people, my cousin Blake chimed in with a smirk. At 26, Blake worked for my uncle's construction company, a job he'd gotten without so much as an interview. My mother shot me a sympathetic look, but she didn't say anything. She never did when the family started on me. Dad was busy refilling his wine glass, pretending not to notice the tension. You know, my Aunt Darlene started, dabbing her mouth with a napkin. The Baker family down the street is looking for someone to walk their dog. $15 an hour. I could put in a good word. More laughter erupted around the table. Even my younger sister Ellie joined in. She was in her final year of college with an internship already lined up at a prestigious accounting firm. I appreciate the thought, I said, my cheeks burning. But I've got some promising leads. That's what you said last month, Blake pointed out. And the month before that. Well, not everyone has their daddy to give them a job, I snapped before I could stop myself. The table went silent. Uncle Rob's face darkened. Now, listen here. No, Rob, it's fine, my father cut in, finally deciding to intervene. Melissa's going through a rough patch. We've all been there. But we hadn't all been there. My father, the successful real estate broker. My uncle, the owner of Taylor Construction. My aunt, the school principal. My cousin, who'd waltzed into a foreman position straight out of high school. Even my mother, who'd inherited her family's chain of local pharmacies. None of them knew what it was like to graduate into a recession, to have $80,000 in student debt, to send out hundreds of applications and hear nothing back. They didn't know what it was like to have a dream. You know what your problem is, Melissa? Uncle Rob leaned forward, his voice taking on that familiar, patronizing tone. You're too proud, too stubborn. You had that fancy business degree from that fancy university, and now you think you're too good for entry-level work. I opened my mouth to argue, but my mother jumped in. Who wants dessert? I made apple pie. The subject changed, but the damage was done. I sat through dessert in silence, nodding and smiling at appropriate intervals while my mind was elsewhere. Later that night, as I lay in my childhood bedroom, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars I'd stuck to the ceiling when I was 12, I made a decision. They would never laugh at me again. I hadn't been entirely truthful with my family. Yes, I'd been unemployed for 5 months, but I hadn't just been job hunting. 3 years earlier, during my final year of college, I'd started developing a software platform that helped small businesses manage their inventory and supply chain. I'd called it Chainlink. After graduation, I'd taken a corporate job like I was supposed to, working as a junior business analyst for a tech company in Boston. I hated every minute of it. The bureaucracy, the office politics, the feeling that my ideas were being ignored because I was young and female. When I was laid off during company-wide cuts, it had felt like both a curse and a blessing. I'd moved back home to Redfield, Massachusetts, a small town of about 30,000 people. My parents had been supportive at first. Take some time, my mother had said. Figure out what you want to do next. But as weeks turned into months, their patience had worn thin. What they didn't know was that I'd been working on Chainlink every day, refining the software, reaching out to potential clients, and building a business plan. 2 weeks before that fateful family dinner, I'd secured my first major client, Thompson's Hardware, a regional chain with 15 stores across New England. They'd agreed to implement Chainlink across all their locations, with a 1-year contract worth $300,000. The day after the dinner, I signed the lease on a small office space downtown. It wasn't much, just a converted loft above Miller's Bakery. But it was mine. Over the next week, I worked day and night getting everything ready. I bought furniture from secondhand stores, set up my equipment, and prepared for the first round of hiring. I needed a team. Customer support specialists, a couple of developers, someone to handle marketing. But before all that, I needed the office to be spotless. The Thompsons executives would be visiting in exactly 1 week for our kickoff meeting, and everything had to be perfect. That's when I had my idea. The family gathering the following Sunday was at my parents' house again. As usual, the conversation eventually turned to me. "Any updates on the job front, Melissa?" my father asked, trying to sound casual as he carved. "The roast." I took a sip of water and set down my glass carefully. "Actually, yes. I've started my own company." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Uncle Rob burst out laughing. "Your own company? What, are you selling those scented candles? Like Karen's daughter?" Karen was their neighbor, whose daughter had indeed started a moderately successful Etsy shop selling homemade candles. "No," I said calmly. "I've developed proprietary software for supply chain management. I just signed my first major client for $300,000, and I've leased an office space downtown." More silence. My father's carving knife hovered mid-slice. "You're joking," Blake said flatly. "I'm not," I replied. "In fact, I'm hiring. I need some people for a short-term gig. Just some. Cleaning and setup work, but I'm paying $20 an hour." My Aunt Darlene raised an eyebrow. "Cleaning?" "Yes," I said. "The previous tenants left the place in pretty bad shape, and I have executives coming to visit on Friday. I need the space to be immaculate." "Well, good for you, honey," my mother said, though she didn't sound entirely convinced. "But don't you think you should start smaller? Running a business is hard work." "I know," I agreed. "That's why I've spent the last 3 years developing this software and the last 5 months building a business plan and finding clients." Uncle Rob grunted. "So you've been lying to us all this time?" "No," I said. "I've been unemployed. I just haven't been inactive." "Well, I think it's really impressive," Ellie said, surprising me. My sister and I had never been particularly close, but her support in that moment meant more than she could know. "So about that cleaning job," I continued, looking around the table. "I'm serious about the $20 an hour. I need about 5 people for a full day's work this Wednesday. Anyone interested?" The reactions were mixed. My father immediately said he was too busy with showings. My mother hesitated, then said she had a committee meeting at church. Aunt Darlene had school obligations. "I'll do it," Ellie said. "My classes end at noon on Wednesday." I smiled at her. "Great. Is this some kind of joke?" Uncle Rob demanded. "You really expect us to believe you started a company out of nowhere?" "Not out of nowhere," I corrected him. "Out of 3 years of development and planning. And I don't expect you to believe anything. That's why I'm inviting you to see for yourselves." I looked at Blake. "What about you, cousin? Could you use an extra $160 for a day's work?" Blake scoffed. "I have a real job." "Right," I nodded. "At your dad's company. How's that working out? Still getting passed over for promotions in favor of outside hires?" Blake's face reddened. It was a sore spot that everyone knew about, but no one discussed. Despite working at Taylor Construction for 8 years, Blake had been bypassed for senior positions 3 times. "Fine," he snapped. "I'll take a personal day. but only because I want to see this so-called company of yours. Perfect, I said. Anyone else? In the end, I recruited Ellie, Blake, my cousin Tara, Aunt Darlene's daughter who was taking a gap, year before college, and to everyone's surprise, Uncle Rob himself. Somebody's got to keep an eye on this operation, he said gruffly. Make sure you're not getting yourself into trouble. I just smiled. Of course, Uncle Rob. I'd value your expertise. The final member of my cleaning crew was my father's younger brother, Uncle Matt. Unlike the rest of the family, Uncle Matt had never quite found his footing in life. He'd been a bartender, a landscaper, a house painter, and most recently, a rideshare driver. He was the family's black sheep, and perhaps for that reason, he'd always been kind to me. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now back to where we left off. Count me in, Melissa, he said with a wink. I could use the cash. And I'm dying to see what you've been cooking up. Wednesday arrived, and I got to the office early. The space was approximately 2,000 square feet, with large windows overlooking Main Street. It had previously been used as an architect's studio, and while it had good bones, it was indeed a mess. Drafting tables needed to be disassembled and removed, walls needed painting, floors needed scrubbing, and there was a layer of dust over everything. At exactly 9 a.m., the bell on the street door rang. I buzzed them in and waited at the top of the stairs. Ellie arrived first, dressed in jeans and an old t-shirt, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. Wow, she said as she reached the landing. This place has potential. Uncle Matt was next, carrying a box of donuts. Figured we'd need sustenance, he explained, setting them on a folding table I'd set up near the entrance. Tara came in looking like she'd rather be anywhere else, her eyes glued to her phone. Blake arrived, trying too hard to appear nonchalant, glancing around with poorly disguised curiosity. Uncle Rob was last, wearing work boots and carrying his own tool belt. Thought these might come in handy, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. Thank you all for coming, I said, gesturing around the space. As you can see, there's a lot to do. I've divided the tasks into sections. I handed each of them a clipboard with a detailed list. There are cleaning supplies in those bins, and I've ordered lunch for 12:30. So this is really happening? Blake asked, looking around. You actually leased this place? I did, I confirmed. It's a 2-year lease with an option to renew. And you've really got a client paying you $300,000? Uncle Rob pressed, skepticism heavy in his voice. I do, I said. Thompson's Hardware. They're implementing my software across all 15 of their stores? Thompson's? Uncle Rob's eyebrows shot up. Bill Thompson's company? I nodded. Yes. Do you know him? We've done some work for them, building their new distribution center in Springfield. He seemed genuinely surprised. Bill doesn't make decisions like that lightly. I know, I said. It took 8 months of demonstrations and meetings to convince him. That's what I was doing while you all thought I was just failing at finding a job. The room fell silent. Then Uncle Matt clapped his hands together. Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but I came here to earn $160 and see my niece's new business. So let's get to work. And they did. Despite the initial awkwardness, everyone pitched in. Ellie and Tara tackled the bathroom, scrubbing until the old tiles gleamed. Blake and Uncle Matt disassembled the drafting tables and carried them down to a dumpster I'd rented. Uncle Rob, after some hesitation, took charge of checking the electrical outlets and fixing some minor issues with the lighting. As the morning progressed, the conversation flowed more naturally. Uncle Rob asked about my software, and for the first time, I felt like he was actually listening to my answers. Blake wanted to know how I'd come up with the idea. Ellie was curious about my plans for hiring. So you're really going to be the boss, she mused as we broke for lunch. I'd ordered sandwiches from the deli down the street. That's pretty cool, sis. Thanks, I said, surprised by her sincerity. It's scary, but exciting. You should be proud of yourself, Uncle Matt said, unwrapping his sandwich. Taking a risk like this. Following your passion. It's still a huge risk, Uncle Rob pointed out, but his tone wasn't dismissive anymore. You've got a lot to learn about running a business. I know, I agreed. And I'd appreciate any advice. You might have, Uncle Rob. You've built something really successful with Taylor Construction. He seemed taken aback by my acknowledgement, then nodded slowly. Well, the first thing you need to understand is cash flow. That $300,000 isn't all going to come at once, and you've got expenses. And just like that, he launched into a detailed explanation of business finances, drawing on his own experiences. I listened carefully, asking questions and taking mental notes. It was the first time he'd ever spoken to me as a peer rather than a child, and despite our rocky relationship, I valued his insights. After lunch, the work continued with renewed energy. By mid-afternoon, the transformation was remarkable. The floors were clean, the walls freshly painted a crisp white, the bathroom spotless. I'd set up 4 workstations with desks and chairs I'd bought secondhand but had professionally cleaned. My own desk faced the windows, with a small conference table nearby for client meetings. It's really coming together, Ellie said, standing, back to admire our work. You just need some plants or something to liven it up. I was thinking the same thing, I admitted. Maybe some art for the walls, too. I know someone who does custom framing at a good price, Uncle Matt offered. I could put you in touch. That would be great, thanks. As the afternoon wore on, I noticed Blake had gone uncharacteristically quiet. He was assembling a bookshelf. With methodical precision, his usual sarcastic comments nowhere to be heard. Everything okay? I asked, handing him a bottle of water. He accepted it without looking up. Yeah, fine. You don't seem fine. Blake sighed and set down his screwdriver. I'm just trying to figure out how you did this. Did what? This. He gestured around the office. You were unemployed, living with your parents. Now suddenly you've got a business, a client, an office. He shook his head. Meanwhile, I've been working my ass off at Dad's company for 8 years, and I'm still just Rob's kid. The vulnerability in his voice caught me off guard. Blake and I had never been close. Growing up, he'd been the golden boy, the athletic cousin who seemed destined for success. I'd been the bookish one, always with my nose in a computer. Now our roles had somehow reversed. It wasn't sudden, I said, sitting on the floor beside him. I've been working on this software since college, and honestly, I got lucky with Thompson's. Right place, right time. I paused, but I also didn't wait for someone to give me an opportunity. I made my own? Yeah, well, not all of us can code. That's not the point. The point is figuring out what you want and going after it, even if people think you're crazy. I studied his face. What do you want, Blake? Really want? He was quiet. For a long moment. I want to run my own crew, not just be a foreman taking orders from my dad and his buddies. I've got ideas for how to make things more efficient, but nobody listens. So make them listen. Or start something on your own. Easy for you to say. No, it's not easy. It's terrifying. I'm one failed contract away from total humiliation, but at least it's my choice. Blake seemed to consider this. How many people are you planning to hire? 5 to start. Why? Just curious. He picked up his screwdriver again. We should finish this bookshelf. By 6 o'clock, the office was transformed. What had once been a dusty, cluttered space was now clean, organized, and beginning to look like a proper business. The 5 of them stood with me near the entrance, surveying our work. Not bad, Uncle Rob admitted. Not bad at all. Thank you all, I said, genuine gratitude in my voice. I couldn't have done this without you. So, what happens now? Ellie asked. Now I finish setting up, start hiring, and meet with Thompson's on Friday. That's soon, Tara observed, speaking up for perhaps the first time all day. Are you nervous? Terrified, I admitted, but also ready. I paid each of them in cash, as promised. Uncle Matt tried to refuse, saying he was just happy to help, but I insisted. A deal was a deal. As they prepared to leave, Uncle Rob lingered. Behind! Listen, Melissa, he began awkwardly. I might have been a bit harsh with you these past few months. A bit? I raised an eyebrow. He had the grace to look embarrassed. Okay, more than a bit. But you have to understand, from our perspective, it looked like you were just sitting around waiting for the perfect job to fall into your lap. I know what it looked like. That's why I didn't bother explaining. Actions speak louder than words. Right? Right. He nodded slowly. Well, consider me impressed. And if you need any business advice, you know where to find me. Thanks, Uncle Rob. I might take you up on that. After they'd all gone, I sat alone in my new office as darkness fell over Main Street. The enormity of what I was undertaking suddenly hit me. I had one client, no employees yet, and a business that existed mostly in my head and on my laptop. The confidence I'd projected to my family wavered in the solitude. What if I failed? What if Thompson's backed out? What if I couldn't find the right people to hire? I pushed the thoughts away. One step at a time. Tomorrow I would finalize my hiring plan. Friday I would meet with Thompson's, and Sunday, at the next family dinner, I would hold my head high regardless of what happened next. Thursday passed in a blur of preparations. I set up the office network, created email accounts, and finalized the presentation for Thompson's. I also posted job listings online for the positions I needed to fill. By Friday morning, I was as ready as I'd ever be. I dressed carefully in a navy blue suit I'd splurged on the previous day, my first new work clothes in months. At precisely 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. Bill Thompson arrived with his CFO, Jessica Winters, and their IT director, Marcus Chen. I greeted them professionally and led them up to the office, trying to project confidence I didn't entirely feel. Nice space, Bill commented, looking around approvingly. You've done a lot with it. Thank you, I said. It's coming together. The meeting went better than I could have hoped. I walked them through the implementation timeline, demonstrated the software's capabilities once more, and answered their questions with confidence. By the end of the 2-hour meeting, we'd signed all the necessary paperwork, and I had a check for the first installment, $75,000. I'm taking a chance on you, Melissa, Bill said as they prepared to leave. My board thinks I'm crazy not to go with one of the established vendors. I won't let you down, I promised. I know you won't. That's why I'm here. After they left, I stared at the check in disbelief. It was really happening. All the late nights, the self-doubt, the mockery from my family, it had been worth it for this moment. I deposited the check immediately, then treated myself to lunch at the cafe downstairs. As I ate my sandwich, I scrolled through the applications that had already come in for the positions I'd posted. There were some promising candidates, including a recent computer science graduate named Tyler Jenkins, who had impressive coding skills. My phone rang. It was Blake. Hey, I answered, surprised. Blake and I rarely called each other. Hey, he replied. Got a minute? Sure. What's up? I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about making my own opportunities. Okay. I gave my notice. At Dad's company this morning. I nearly choked on my sandwich. You did what? I quit. I told him I'm starting my own business. A specialized construction crew focusing on eco-friendly renovations. It's something I've been researching for a while, but I never had the guts to pursue it. Wow, Blake. That's big. How did Uncle Rob take it? About as well as you'd expect. There was yelling. Some furniture got kicked. He sighed. But then something weird happened. He calmed down and asked me to explain my business plan. And did you have one? Sort of. I've been working on it for about a year, but I never thought I'd actually do anything with it. I smiled despite myself. Perhaps Blake and I had more in common than I'd realized. Listen, he continued. I hate to ask this, but do you think I could pick your brain sometime? About getting started, finding clients, that sort of thing? Of course, I said. That's what family's for, right? There was a pause. Right. Thanks. Melissa. After hanging up, I sat back in my chair, processing the conversation. It seemed my small act of rebellion had sparked something larger. The thought was both gratifying and humbling. Sunday's family dinner came around faster than I expected. This time, it was at Aunt Darlene's house. I arrived last, having spent the morning interviewing potential employees over video calls. The atmosphere was noticeably different. Instead of the usual barely concealed judgment, I was greeted with genuine interest. Even my father, who had been skeptical about my venture, asked thoughtful questions about my meeting with Thompsons. So you actually got the check? He asked, visibly impressed. I did, I confirmed. It's already been deposited and cleared. And you're hiring already? My mother asked. Yes. I've interviewed several candidates. I'm hoping to have a team of 5 by the end of next week. Uncle Rob, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. You'll need an accountant. Someone who understands small business taxes. I can put you in touch with Gary Miller. He handles our books. That would be great. Thank you. The conversation flowed naturally to Blake's surprising news. Uncle Rob, to everyone's surprise, seemed to have made peace with his son's decision. It's not how I would have done it, he admitted, but the kid's got a solid plan, and there's a growing market for green building techniques. You're actually supportive? Aunt Darlene asked incredulously. Uncle Rob shrugged. He's 26, old enough to make his own mistakes. And who knows? Maybe he'll succeed. He glanced at me. Stranger things have happened. I caught Blake's eye across the table and gave him a small nod of acknowledgement. He returned it with a half-smile. After dinner, as we all moved to the living room for coffee, Uncle Matt pulled me aside. I wanted to thank you, he said quietly. For what? For showing them a different path. This family's always been so conventional. Business gets handed down, everyone follows the expected route. You broke that pattern. I hadn't thought of it that way, but he was right. In our family, success had always been defined narrowly. Take over the family business, get a professional degree, follow the established path. My detour from that expectation had been seen as failure until I'd proven otherwise. I was just doing what I needed to do, I said. And that's exactly what makes it important. He squeezed my shoulder affectionately. So, any chance you might need a part-time office manager? I'm pretty good with people, and I could use a steady gig. I looked at him in surprise. Uncle Matt had never seemed interested in office work before. I'm serious, he insisted. Your business is going to grow, and you'll need someone to handle the day-to-day stuff while you focus on the big picture. I considered it. Uncle Matt was good with people. He was reliable when given responsibility. And having a family member I trusted in the office might actually be helpful. Let's talk about it tomorrow, I suggested. Come by the office around 10? I'll be there. The following weeks were a whirlwind. I hired 4 employees, Tyler Jenkins as my developer, a customer service specialist named Amelia Rodriguez, a marketing coordinator named Derek Washington, and to everyone's surprise, Uncle Matt as our office manager. The arrangement was intended to be temporary, but Matt took to the role with unexpected enthusiasm, organizing systems and handling administrative tasks with an efficiency I hadn't anticipated. Thompson's implementation was proceeding smoothly, and word was beginning to spread. I received inquiries from 2 more regional retail chains interested in demos of the Chainlink system. Blake, meanwhile, had secured a small business loan and rented a modest office space for his eco-friendly construction company, Green Beam Construction. Uncle Rob, after his initial anger had subsided, had become something of a mentor to Blake, offering advice without trying to control the operation. It was a new dynamic for them both. 1 month after that fateful family dinner, where I'd announced my company, I hosted a small office warming party. My employees were there, along with my family. I'd invited Bill Thompson as well, who attended briefly with his wife. As I looked around at the gathering, my family mingling with my team, discussing business and life with genuine interest, I felt a profound sense of satisfaction. Not just because my business was succeeding, but because in pursuing my own path, I'd somehow helped others find theirs. Ellie approached me, champagne flute in hand. "So, big sister," she said with a grin, "got any advice for a soon-to-be graduate?" "Advice?" I laughed. "Since when do you want advice from me? Since you went from unemployed to CEO in 5 months." She took a sip of champagne. "Seriously, Melissa, I'm impressed, and maybe a little intimidated." "Intimidated? By me?" She nodded. "You took a huge risk, followed your passion. I've been so focused on following the safe path. Good grades, prestigious internship, secure job." She lowered her voice. "The thing is, I don't even like accounting that much." "What do you like?" "Environmental science, specifically water conservation systems." She looked almost embarrassed. "But there's not exactly a family business in that field." "Maybe there should be," I suggested. "Or maybe you should create one." "You make it sound so simple." "It's not simple. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's also the most rewarding." I clinked my glass against hers. "Think about it. And if you decide to take the leap, you know where to find me." She smiled. "I do." Later that evening, as the party was winding down, I found myself standing with Uncle Rob near the window, watching the sunset over Main Street. "You know," he said reflectively, "I was wrong about you." "That must have been painful to admit," I teased. He chuckled. "More than you know." He took a sip of his bourbon. "When you were growing up, you were always so different from the rest of us, always with your nose in a book or tinkering with computers. I didn't understand it. And now? Now, I see that being different was your strength, not your weakness." He turned to face me. "You've done good, kid. Really good." "Thanks, Uncle Rob. Don't get me wrong, you've still got a long road ahead. Building a business isn't just about landing the first client or having a nice office. I know that, but you've got the right instincts. And surprisingly, you've got good people skills. The way you handled Thompson at the party? Impressive." Coming from Uncle Rob, this was high praise indeed. "I'm thinking of expanding," I told him. "Thompson's implementation is going well, and I've got 2 more potential clients lined up. I might need to hire more people soon." "Expansion is tricky," he warned. "Don't grow too fast. Make sure your foundation is solid first." "That's good advice. I've got plenty more where that came from." He smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Just ask." As Uncle Rob moved away to join my father in conversation, I took a moment to absorb the scene around me. My small but growing team, excited about our future. My family, finally seeing me for who I really was. The office space that had transformed, from a dusty architect's studio to the headquarters of a promising tech startup. 5 months ago, I'd been the family disappointment, the unemployed college graduate who couldn't get her act together. Now I was Melissa Taylor, founder and CEO of Chainlink Solutions. The journey was just beginning, and there would be challenges ahead. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't facing them alone. I had a team. I had support. I had respect, and it had all started with a simple decision: to hire my doubters to clean my office. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising above, succeeding against the odds, and bringing others along with you on the journey. In the end, that's what transforms not just offices, but relationships and lives. My name is Melissa Taylor, and this is just the beginning of my story. 3 months after launching Chainlink, I found myself facing an unexpected dilemma: growing too quickly. Thompson's Hardware had become our flagship client, singing our praises to other businesses in their network. As a result, 2 more clients had signed on: Westridge Supplies, a contractor supply chain with 8 locations, and Lakeside Home Goods, a boutique home decor retailer with 12 stores across 3 states. The revenue was excellent, but fulfilling our obligations was stretching my small team to their limits. Tyler was working 14-hour days to customize the software for each client. Amelia was handling support calls from all 3 companies. Derek was trying to manage our growing social media presence while also developing marketing materials. Even Uncle Matt, who had proven surprisingly adept at office management, was beginning to show signs of stress. "We need to hire more people," Uncle Matt said one evening as we sat in the office reviewing the week's progress. Everyone else had gone home, but the 2 of us often stayed late, strategizing. "I know," I agreed, rubbing my temples. "But hiring means training, and training takes time that none of us have right now. So we're in a catch-22. We're too busy to hire, but we're too busy not to hire." "Exactly." I sighed and leaned back in my chair. "Plus, we'd need more space. We're already cramped with just 5 of us." Uncle Matt tapped his pen thoughtfully against his notepad. "You know, I heard that the 2nd floor of this building might be opening up soon. Miller's Bakery downstairs is expanding into the storefront next door, and the current tenant upstairs, that graphic design studio, is moving to a bigger location. Another expansion so soon. I don't know if we're ready for that." "Growth is painful," he said with a shrug, "but the alternative is worse." I knew he was right. We needed to scale up or risk burning out. But the thought of taking on more overhead, more employees, more responsibility, it was daunting. "Let me think about it," I said. "In the meantime, let's see if we can bring in some temporary help for the immediate crunch." The next day, I reached out to Ellie, who was in her final semester of college. She'd been showing increasing interest in my business venture, stopping by the office whenever she was home for the weekend. "Any chance you'd want to earn some extra money helping us with some data entry and basic customer support?" I asked over the phone. "Just for a few weeks, until we figure out our next steps." "Are you kidding? I'd love to." Her enthusiasm was palpable. "Actually, I've been wanting to talk to you about something. My roommate Julia is a computer science major, specializing in database management. She's brilliant, and she's looking for a summer internship. Would you be interested in meeting her?" An internship program hadn't crossed my mind, but it made perfect sense. We could get the help we needed while giving students valuable experience. "Send me her resume," I said. "And if you know any other promising students looking for real-world experience, send them my way too." By the end of the week, I had 5 potential interns lined up for interviews: Julia Chen for database management, Marcus Rodriguez for software development, Harper Williams for marketing, Damon Jackson for customer support, and to my surprise, Tara. "You want to intern at Chainlink?" I asked when she called to inquire about the position. "I thought you were taking a gap year to figure out what you wanted to do." "That was the plan," she admitted. "But after helping clean your office that day, and then seeing how everything came together at your party, I don't know, it got me thinking. I'm good with people and I'm organized. Maybe business administration is something I could explore." "Well, I'd be happy to interview you," I said, touched by her interest. "But you should know, these are paid positions, but they're entry-level and temporary." "That's perfect," she assured. Me. "I just want to get my feet wet, see if it's something I might want to pursue in college." The interviews went well. All 5 candidates were bright, eager, and showed potential. I decided to take a chance and offer positions to all of them, with the internship structured as a 3-month program that could potentially lead to permanent roles for the standouts. With the immediate staffing crisis addressed, I turned my attention to the space issue. Uncle Matt had been right. The second floor was indeed becoming available. After some negotiation with the building owner, I secured a lease that would give us both floors, effectively doubling our workspace. The expansion was a significant financial commitment, but with our growing client base, it was a calculated risk worth taking. The real challenge would be managing it all, without losing the personal touch that had made Chainlink successful so far. Sunday dinners at my parents' house had evolved into something I now actually looked forward to. The mocking comments about my employment status were a distant memory, replaced by genuine interest in my business ventures. Even more surprisingly, these dinners had become informal business networking events. Melissa, I mentioned your inventory system to Carl Winslow at the golf club yesterday, my father said as he passed the potatoes. He owns that sporting goods chain, Winslow's Athletics. He seemed interested. Thanks, Dad. I'll follow up with him this week. And I've been talking up Blake's eco-friendly construction to some of the families at school, Aunt Darlene added. The Hendersons are planning a major renovation of their lake house. They want something sustainable. Blake nodded appreciatively. I'll give them a call. It was surreal, this transformation. The same family that had once ridiculed our ambitions was now actively helping us succeed. Even more remarkably, we were helping each other. Blake's Green Beam Construction had secured several contracts for eco-friendly home renovations. Uncle Rob had come around completely, even lending Blake some of his equipment during the startup phase. They were developing a new relationship, based on mutual respect rather than authority and obligation. Ellie had begun reconsidering her career path, inspired by both my tech venture and Blake's environmental focus. She was now talking about combining her accounting background with her interest in environmental science, perhaps focusing on sustainability consulting for businesses. After dinner, as we gathered in the living room, Blake pulled me aside. I need your advice, he said quietly. I've got an opportunity to bid on a major project, a complete green retrofit of the community center. It would be by far my biggest job yet. That's fantastic. It is, but it's also intimidating. I'd need to hire at least 6 more people, get additional equipment. It's a big step up. I smiled, recognizing his dilemma all too well. Sounds familiar. The question is, are you ready to scale? I think so. My current team is solid. The business model is working. It's just a lot of money to risk. You've got to spend money to make money, I said, echoing one of Uncle Rob's favorite phrases. But you also need to be smart about it. Have you run the numbers? What's your contingency plan if something goes wrong? Blake nodded. I've been working on the projections all week. The margins are tight but doable. And I've got a line on some experienced workers who could hit the ground running. Then I think you should go for it, I said. Growing pains are inevitable, but if you don't take these opportunities when they come, someone else will. He seemed to relax a bit. That's what I needed to hear. Thanks, Melissa. That's what family's for, right? The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. The interns started their program, injecting new energy into the office. The renovation of the second floor began, with Blake's company handling the work at a discounted rate. My suggestion, as it would give him a commercial project for his portfolio. I also made 2 key full-time hires, a senior developer named Rachel, Foster to take some of the pressure off Tyler, and a finance manager, Victor Torres, to handle our increasingly complex accounting needs. The team was growing, and with it, my responsibilities as a leader. One Tuesday afternoon, I was reviewing our quarterly projections with Victor when Uncle Matt knocked on my office door. Sorry to interrupt, he said, but there's someone here to see you. Says it's important. Who is it? James Caldwell, from Meridian Tech. I felt my heart skip a beat. Meridian Tech was one of the largest tech companies in Boston, known for acquiring promising startups. I'd interned there during college, but had left with a bitter taste after experiencing their cutthroat corporate culture firsthand. Send him in, I said, exchanging a curious glance with Victor. James Caldwell was exactly as I remembered him. Tall, impeccably dressed, with the smooth confidence of someone used to getting his way. "Melissa Taylor," he said with a practiced smile. "It's been a while." 3 years, I confirmed, standing to shake his hand. "What brings you to Redfield?" "Business, of course." He glanced around my office approvingly. "You've built quite the operation here. We've been hearing good things about Chainlink." "Thank you. We're proud of what we've accomplished." "As you should be." He set his briefcase on my desk and extracted a folder. "Which is why I'm here. Meridian is interested in acquiring Chainlink." The words hung in the air. An acquisition offer from Meridian would have been a dream come true for many startups. It would mean immediate financial security, resources beyond what I could currently provide, and validation of everything I'd built, but it would also mean giving up control, becoming part of the very corporate machine I'd fled. "I'm flattered by your interest," I said carefully, "but we're not looking to sell at this time." James smiled as if I'd made a joke. "Everyone's looking to sell at the right price, Melissa. And I'm authorized to make a very generous offer." He slid the folder across my desk. "Take a look. Sleep on it. We can discuss the details tomorrow over lunch." Against my better judgment, I opened the folder. The number on the first page made my breath catch. It was significantly more money than I'd ever imagined having. Enough to pay off my student loans, buy a house, secure my future. "That's just the starting point," James added, clearly noticing my reaction. "There's room for negotiation." "I appreciate the offer," I said, closing the folder. "But as I said, we're not interested in selling right now. We're just getting started." James's smile remained, but his eyes hardened slightly. "You should know that if we can't acquire Chainlink, we'll be moving forward with our own supply chain management solution. The market is ripe, and Meridian intends to be a player in it." "Is that a threat?" "Not at all. Just business reality. A small operation like yours can't hope to compete with Meridian's resources long term." I stood, signaling that the meeting was over. "We'll take our chances. Thank you for stopping by, James." After he left, I sat at my desk staring at the folder. The offer was tempting. Far more tempting than I wanted to admit. With that money, I could ensure financial security not just for myself, but potentially for my family as well. I could invest in Blake's business, help Ellie with her student loans, maybe even contribute to Uncle Matt's retirement fund. But I'd also be giving up everything I'd worked for. My vision, my independence, the culture I was building. That evening, I called an impromptu family meeting at my parents' house. I needed advice from the people who knew me best, even if we hadn't always seen eye to eye. "Meridian wants to buy Chainlink," I announced once everyone had gathered in the living room. "They're offering a substantial amount of money." "How substantial?" Uncle Rob asked bluntly. I named the figure. There were audible gasps. "You'd be set for life," my father said, clearly impressed. "But you'd be working for them," Uncle Matt pointed out. "After everything you've done to build something of your own?" "Exactly. That's my dilemma." "What does your gut tell you?" Blake asked. I hesitated. My gut says no. But I'm worried that it's pride talking, not business sense. "Sometimes they're the same thing," Uncle Rob said, surprising me. "Pride in what you've built can be a powerful business motivator." "But you're always talking about making smart financial decisions," I countered. "This is a lot of money to walk away from." "It is," he agreed. "But money isn't everything. Believe me, I've learned that the hard way." He glanced at Blake, and something unspoken passed between them. There's something to be said for building a legacy, for creating something that's truly yours. "What about a counteroffer?" Ellie suggested. "Maybe there's a middle ground, a partnership instead of an acquisition." Based on what I know of Meridian, They don't do partnerships, I said. It's all or nothing with them. Then the question is simple, my mother said, speaking up for the first time. What do you want, Melissa? Not what makes the most financial sense, or what would impress others. What do you want? It was a profound question, one that cut through all the noise. What did I want? Security? Recognition? Independence? The ability to build something meaningful on my own terms? I want to see this through, I said finally. I want to build Chainlink my way with my team according to my vision. Then I think you have your answer, she said with a gentle smile. The next day, I met James for lunch as planned, but only to deliver my decision in person. He was predictably dismissive. You're making a mistake, he warned as I prepared to leave. Meridian doesn't take rejection well, and the market is only going to get more competitive. I'm counting on it, I replied with more confidence than I felt. Competition keeps us sharp. The following weeks tested my resolve. True to James's warning, Meridian announced their own supply chain management platform, Meridian Link, targeted specifically at mid-sized retailers, our exact market. They had the resources to develop quickly and the marketing budget to make a big splash, but we had something they didn't, a proven product with satisfied customers. Thompson's Hardware became our biggest advocate, publicly praising Chainlink's effectiveness and our personalized customer service. Bill Thompson even agreed to speak at a regional retail conference, where he highlighted the benefits of working with a nimble, dedicated team rather than a faceless corporation. As summer turned to fall, our intern program came to an end. All 5 interns had exceeded expectations, particularly Julia, whose database optimizations had significantly improved our system's performance. I offered permanent positions to Julia, Marcus, and Harper, all of whom accepted enthusiastically. Tara decided to enroll in business school, inspired by her experience at Chainlink. I finally know what I want to do, she told me on her last day. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for taking a chance on us, I replied, genuinely moved by how far we'd both come in such a short time. The office expansion was completed in October, giving us much-needed breathing room. The upstairs housed our growing development team, while downstairs became client-facing space with a proper reception area, Uncle Matt's domain, and small conference rooms for demos and meetings. Competition from Meridian pushed us to innovate faster, to listen more carefully to our clients' needs, and to focus on what made us unique. We couldn't match their resources, but we could offer a level of personalization and responsiveness that their corporate structure couldn't support. By the end of the year, we had 12 full-time employees, a stable client base of 8 companies, and a reputation for excellence in our niche. We weren't the biggest player in the market, but we were respected and profitable. At the New Year's Eve party hosted at my now spacious apartment, another benefit of business success, I found myself on the balcony with Uncle Rob, both of us taking a break from the festivities inside. You know, he said, sipping his scotch contemplatively, I never thought I'd say this, but you've taught me a few things about business this past year. I find that hard to believe, I laughed. You've been doing this a lot longer than I have. That's just it. Sometimes experience makes you set in your ways. You showed me that there's more than one path to success. 18 months after launching Chainlink, I stood at the podium of the Northeast Business Innovation Awards, clutching a glass trophy that proclaimed us Emerging Tech Company of the Year. The journey from my parents' dining room table to this moment felt surreal. This award belongs to every member of the Chainlink team, I said into the microphone, scanning the ballroom where my employees sat at 2 tables near the front. Your dedication, creativity, and willingness to take risks have made our success possible. My gaze landed on my family members scattered throughout the audience, my parents beaming with pride, Ellie recording the speech on her phone, Uncle Ape, Matt giving me a thumbs up from our company table where he sat as our now permanent operations director. I also want to thank my family, I continued, my voice catching slightly. Some of you quite literally helped build our company from the ground up. A knowing chuckle rippled through the crowd. Your support, your challenges, and yes, even your doubts pushed me to prove that there are many paths to success. After the ceremony, as we celebrated at a nearby restaurant, Bill Thompson pulled me aside. Congratulations, Melissa. Well deserved. Thank you, Bill. We wouldn't be here without Thompson taking a chance on us. He waved away my gratitude. Good business decisions aren't chances. They're calculated risks based on solid assessment. He took a sip of his drink. Which brings me to why I wanted to talk to you. I'm part of an investment group focusing on tech innovation in the retail sector. We've been watching Chainlink's growth with interest. Investment group? I clarified. Not acquisition? He smiled. Not acquisition, strategic partnership. Capital infusion that would allow you to scale faster, access to our network and resources, but with you maintaining control of the company and its direction. It was exactly what we needed. Despite our success, growth was still constrained by our limited capital. We had a waiting list of potential clients, but lacked the resources to onboard them all efficiently. I'd be interested in hearing more, I said cautiously. Good. I'll have my people set up a meeting next week. He glanced around the restaurant at my celebrating team. You've built something special here, Melissa. Not just a successful business, but a community. Don't lose that, no matter how big you grow. His words stayed with me in the weeks that followed. The investment offer materialized, $5 million for a 30% stake in Chainlink, with a board seat but no operational control. After thorough due diligence and countless discussions with Uncle Rob, Victor, and my leadership team, I accepted the deal. The capital infusion transformed Chainlink almost overnight. We moved from our 2-floor office above Miller's Bakery to a converted warehouse on the edge of downtown Redfield. The industrial chic space gave us room to double our staff to 40 employees, including a dedicated research and development team focused on the next generation of our software. More importantly, it allowed us to compete directly with Meridian and other larger players entering our market. While they had more resources, we maintained our edge through innovation and personalized service, a balance that became our trademark in the industry. The growth brought new challenges, particularly in maintaining the company culture that had made us successful. As we added more employees who hadn't been part of our early struggles, I worried about losing the familial atmosphere and shared purpose that had defined us. Uncle Matt, ever practical, suggested a solution. Everyone's heard the story of how you started Chainlink, but they haven't lived it. Maybe we need to make it more tangible. His idea was to create a mural for our new office, documenting our journey from the beginning. We commissioned a local artist who interviewed original team members and translated their stories into a vibrant timeline that covered an entire wall of our main workspace. The centerpiece was a recreation of that first day when my family had helped clean the original office, their skepticism giving way to support. Every new employee was given a tour of the mural as part of their orientation, absorbing our origin story as they joined our community. As Chainlink flourished, so did the other ventures that had sprung from our family's transformation. Blake's Green Beam Construction had become the premier eco-friendly contractor in 3 counties, with a staff of 22 and a 6-month waiting list for new projects. He'd even hired Uncle Rob as a consultant, a reversal that amused us all. Ellie had graduated and, after much consideration, taken a position with an environmental consulting firm while pursuing her master's degree part-time. Her focus was helping businesses implement sustainable practices, a path influenced by both my tech venture and Blake's construction company. Tara was thriving in business school, returning each summer to intern at Chainlink. She had a natural talent for project management that suggested a bright future once she graduated. The most surprising transformation, however, was in my parents. Watching their children and nieces and nephews forge our own paths had awakened something in them. My father, after 30 years in real estate, had begun mentoring young entrepreneurs through a local business incubator. My mother had resigned from her family's pharmacy business to pursue her long-dormant interest in art therapy, working with children at the community center Blake had renovated. "You know what's funny?" my mother said to me one day as we had lunch, near my office. "We always thought we were setting the example for you kids. Turns out, you were setting it for us." "How so?" "You all had the courage to pursue what truly mattered to you, not just what was expected. It made your father and me realize we'd been playing it safe for decades." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "It's never too late to reinvent yourself. That's what you taught us." The lesson wasn't lost on me. Despite Chainlink's success, I found myself restless, hungry for new challenges. The day-to-day operations of a growing company were becoming more about management and less about innovation, the part that had excited me most from the beginning. I confided my feelings to Uncle Matt during one of our weekly strategy sessions. "I feel ungrateful even saying this," I admitted. "We've achieved more than I ever dreamed possible. But lately, I've been wondering what's next." "That's not ungrateful," he countered. "It's human. We're not meant to stay still." "But I have responsibilities to our employees, our investors, our clients." "True. But your primary responsibility is to ensure Chainlink's continued success. If that means evolving your own role to stay engaged and creative, then that's what you should do." His perspective gave me permission to explore possibilities I'd been reluctant to consider. What if I stepped back from day-to-day operations to focus on strategic vision and innovation? We had capable leaders who could manage the business. Rachel had proven herself as a technical director. Victor had the financials well in hand, and Uncle Matt had become the heart of our operations. I spent weeks crafting a restructuring plan that would allow me to transition to executive chairperson while promoting Rachel to chief technology officer and bringing in a seasoned CEO to handle daily operations. The plan maintained my controlling interest and strategic influence while freeing me to pursue new innovations that could benefit Chainlink long-term. When I presented the plan to our board, including Bill Thompson, the response was unexpectedly positive. "This is exactly the kind of self-awareness we hoped you'd develop," Bill said approvingly. "The best founders know when to evolve their role for the good of the company." With the board's blessing, I implemented the transition over 3 months, carefully communicating with every stakeholder to ensure a smooth handover. By the time we announced the changes publicly, Chainlink was running seamlessly under its new leadership structure. I established an innovation lab within the company, a small team dedicated to exploring new applications of our technology beyond retail supply chains. Healthcare, education, nonprofit management. Each sector presented unique challenges that our core technology might address with the right adaptations. The lab became my new passion, a return to the creative problem-solving that had inspired Chainlink in the first place. I was building again, not just managing, and the distinction reignited my enthusiasm. 2 years after our initial launch, we held a company-wide celebration marking Chainlink's remarkable journey. From a one-person operation to a thriving company with 56 employees and annual revenue exceeding $12 million, we had defied every expectation, including my own. The celebration was held at my parents' house, where it had all begun. We'd set up tents in the backyard, with catering from local restaurants and music from a band featuring one of our developers. Employees mingled with family members, sharing stories and laughter as the summer evening stretched into twilight. Near the dessert table, I overheard a conversation between Uncle Rob and one of our newer employees, a young developer named Sophia. "So, you really didn't believe she could pull it off?" Sophia asked incredulously. Uncle Rob chuckled. "Not at first. None of us did, except maybe Matt." He took a bite of cake. "But that's the thing about Melissa. She doesn't need you to believe in her. She believes in herself enough for everyone." That's what makes her such an inspiring leader. Sophia agreed. She makes you believe anything is possible. I slipped away before they noticed me, oddly touched by the exchange. It was true that I'd needed to believe in myself when no one else did. But what neither of them realized was how much the journey had transformed that belief from desperate determination to genuine confidence. Later in the evening, as the party was winding down, I found myself sitting on the porch steps with Blake. Both of us nursing beers and watching the cleanup crew, a catering team, not family members this time, dismantle the tents. "Remember when we were the cleanup crew?" Blake mused, "scrubbing your office while Uncle Rob supervised? How could I forget? You were so sullen." "I was jealous," he admitted. "You had this clear vision, this purpose. I was just going through the motions at Dad's company. And now look at us." I clinked my bottle against his. "Business owners, employers, actually making a difference. Who'd have thought?" He shook his head in wonder. "You know what I realized recently? That day cleaning your office was the first time I'd ever worked for a woman boss. It changed something in my perspective." "Really? You never mentioned that." "Well, at the time I was too busy being resentful," he laughed. "But looking back, it was important. And now half my team is women, including my lead foreman, forewoman, Janelle." "The world's changing," I observed. "Sometimes one small shift, in perspective, can trigger something much bigger." "Like hiring your doubters to clean your office?" "Exactly like that." We sat in companionable silence, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. So much had changed in 2 years, yet the core of what mattered remained constant: family, purpose, the courage to forge our own paths. A week after the celebration, I was working late in the innovation lab when Uncle Matt stopped by, a mysterious smile on his face. "Got a minute? There's someone I think you should meet." He led me to the conference room where a young woman waited, nervously clutching a laptop. She couldn't have been more than 22, with bright eyes and an earnest expression that reminded me of myself not so long ago. "Melissa, this is Zoe Washington. She's developed an app for community resource sharing that I think could have real potential." Zoe stood quickly, extending her hand. "Ms. Taylor, it's an honor to meet you. Your story inspired me to develop this platform. I've been working on it for 2 years, but I'm having trouble getting anyone to take it seriously." As she walked us through her prototype, a clever system allowing communities to share tools, skills, and resources, I felt a familiar spark of excitement. Her technology was rough but promising, her passion unmistakable. "Everyone keeps telling me to get a real job instead of pursuing this," she said, echoing words I'd heard countless times. "My family thinks I'm wasting my time." I exchanged a knowing glance with Uncle Matt. "Tell me, Zoe," I said, "do any of your family members know how to clean an office?" She looked confused. "I guess so. My mom's pretty organized and my brother works as a janitor part-time." "Perfect," I said with a smile. "I think I know exactly where you should start." Over the next month, I mentored Zoe through the process of setting up her company, Community Share. We found her an affordable office space, ironically, the very same space above Miller's Bakery where Chainlink had begun. I helped her refine her business plan, connected her with potential investors, and yes, suggested she hire her skeptical family members to help prepare her office. "Make them part of this journey," I advised. "Even if they don't believe in your vision yet, they'll believe in you." On the day of Community Share's official launch, I stood back and watched Zoe cut the ribbon on her new office, surrounded by family members whose initial doubt had given way to cautious support. Her mother had taken charge of organizing the space, her father had handled the basic accounting setup, and her brother had indeed cleaned the place from top to bottom. "They still think I'm a little crazy," Zoe confided as we watched the small gathering of well-wishers explore the office. "But they're here. That's a start." "That's more than a start," I assured her. That's everything. As I drove home that evening, I reflected on the circular nature of our journeys. 2 years earlier, I had been the one desperate to prove myself, hiring family members who doubted me to clean my office. Now I was the mentor, the believer, the supporter of someone else's dream. The true measure of success, I realized, wasn't in the awards or the revenue or even the innovation. It was in the ripple effect, the way one person's courage could inspire others to find their own. My phone buzzed with a text from Uncle Matt. "Proud of you today. Full circle moment." I smiled. He always did have a knack for reading my thoughts. When I arrived home, I didn't go inside immediately. Instead, I sat on my front steps, much as Blake and I had done at the party, and looked up at the stars. I thought about the journey, not just mine, but all of ours. How my act of defiance had somehow unlocked something in each of us, allowing us to reimagine what was possible. My family laughed when I was jobless. I had hired them to clean my office. And somehow, in that simple act of turning mockery into opportunity, we had all been transformed. Some people might call it revenge. I preferred to think of it as redemption, for all of us. The road ahead would have its challenges. Markets would shift, technologies would evolve, relationships would change. But the foundation we'd built, of mutual respect, of believing in each other's potential, of helping each other succeed, that would endure. My name is Melissa Taylor. I turned my family's mockery into the catalyst for all our success. And this story isn't ending. It's just beginning. 5 years after founding Chainlink, I stood on the stage of the Grand Ballroom at the Redfield Hotel, surveying the crowd gathered for our company's anniversary gala. The faces looking back at me reflected our remarkable journey. Employees whose careers had flourished alongside our growth. Clients who had become friends. Investors who had believed in our vision and family. Members whose mockery had transformed into unwavering support. When I think about Chainlink's success, I began, I'm reminded of a quote by the author Zora Neale Hurston. There are years that ask questions and years that answer. These past 5 years have done both. From my vantage point, I could see Uncle Matt at the head table, now our Chief Operations Officer, conferring with Rachel, our CTO. Victor Torres, our CFO, was deep in conversation with Bill Thompson, who had become both mentor and friend. My parents sat with Ellie, who had recently launched her own sustainability consulting firm with seed funding from Chainlink's newly established innovation fund. The questions we faced were significant, I continued. Could a small startup compete with industry giants? Could we maintain our values while scaling rapidly? Could we innovate continuously while building a stable business? The answers have come through the dedication of every person in this room, through your creativity, your perseverance, and your willingness to believe in possibilities others couldn't see. Chainlink had evolved beyond my wildest dreams. What had begun as inventory management software for retail chains had expanded into comprehensive supply chain solutions for multiple industries. We now employed over 100 people, with offices in Boston, Chicago, and Austin, in addition to our Redfield headquarters. Our annual revenue had crossed the $25 million threshold, and industry analysts regularly cited us as an example of innovation done right. Yet the achievement I felt most proud of wasn't captured in our financial statements or press coverage. It was the culture we'd created. One where every employee was encouraged to pursue their ideas, where failure was viewed as a stepping stone rather than a setback, and where success was measured not just in profits, but in positive impact. After the gala, as servers cleared away dessert plates and the band began packing up their instruments, I found myself sitting at a corner table with Uncle Rob, now semi-retired from Taylor Construction with Blake running day-to-day operations. I've been meaning to tell you something, he said, twisting his wedding band, a nervous habit he'd had for as long as I could remember. That first day when we all came to clean your office, I didn't come because I wanted to help. I came because I wanted to prove you wrong. I smiled. I know, Uncle Rob. You knew? Of course. You weren't exactly subtle about your skepticism. He chuckled, shaking his head. I had it all planned out. I was going to see your little business, confirm it was just a fantasy, then give you a speech about accepting an entry-level position somewhere respectable and working your way up like everyone else. What changed your mind? 2 things, he said thoughtfully. First, I saw how prepared you were. You had a business plan, a client, a clear vision. It wasn't just talk. He paused. But more importantly, I saw how you treated us that day. You weren't defensive or apologetic. You were confident, organized, respectful of our skills. You led us like a true business owner. I was terrified the whole time, I admitted. I kept thinking you'd all walk out, or tell me I was delusional. That's what good leaders do, he said. They carry on despite their fears. He looked around the ballroom, now nearly empty. You've built something remarkable here, Melissa. Not just a successful company, but a new model for our family. You've shown all of us that there are many ways to define success. His words lingered with me in the weeks that followed as I contemplated Chainlink's future. We had reached a pivotal moment in our growth trajectory. Acquisition offers arrived regularly, some at valuations that would have been unimaginable just a few years earlier. Industry consolidation was intensifying, with Meridian Tech having already acquired 2 of our smaller competitors. The pressure to sell was substantial. Some investors argued that the timing was perfect. Our technology was industry-leading. Our brand was strong, and the market was willing to pay a premium. But something held me back from seriously considering these offers. That something crystallized during a leadership retreat we held at a lakeside lodge in Vermont. During a session on long-term strategic planning, I posed a question to our executive team. What do we want Chainlink to become in the next 5 years? The answers varied widely. Some focused on technological advancements, others on market expansion or vertical integration. But when I asked a follow-up question, why does Chainlink exist? A common theme emerged. To prove that innovation doesn't have to come from massive corporations, Rachel offered. To show that you can build a successful business while treating people well, added Victor. To create opportunities for people to do meaningful work, Uncle Matt suggested. Their responses articulated what I had intuitively felt but hadn't fully verbalized. Chainlink wasn't just about supply chain software or business success. It was about challenging conventional wisdom, about demonstrating that there were alternatives to the traditional paths to success. This revelation led to a pivotal decision. Rather than positioning ourselves for acquisition, we would pursue a different approach: employee ownership. We designed a structure that would gradually transfer significant equity to our employees while maintaining the strategic control needed for consistent vision and growth. The announcement of our employee ownership plan generated buzz throughout the industry. Business journals published profiles of our unconventional approach, and several tech companies reached out to learn more about our model. But the most meaningful response came from within our own walls. Employees whose commitment and enthusiasm reached new heights as they transitioned from staff to stakeholders. As Chainlink continued its evolution, so did the ripple effects throughout my extended family. Blake's Greenbeam Construction had become a regional leader in sustainable building, with projects spanning from eco-friendly residential developments to commercial retrofits. He had recently won a contract to build a net-zero energy corporate campus for a major tech company, his largest project to date. Ellie's sustainability consulting firm, Ecometrics, was thriving. She had developed a proprietary system for measuring businesses' environmental impact and creating actionable improvement plans. Several Chainlink clients had hired her, creating a synergy between our companies that benefited everyone involved. Tara had graduated from business school and surprised everyone by joining a nonprofit, focused on teaching entrepreneurship to underprivileged youth. "I want to help create more success stories like yours," she had told me when explaining her choice. Even my parents had reinvented themselves. My father had transitioned from real estate broker to small business advocate, working with the local government to create policies supporting entrepreneurship. My mother's art therapy program had expanded into multiple community centers, touching hundreds of lives. The transformation extended beyond our immediate circle. Zoe Washington's community share platform had gained traction in 3 states, with investors now competing for the opportunity to fund her expansion. She had hired 15 employees, including her once skeptical brother as operations manager. Each of these ventures traced their roots back to that pivotal moment when I had decided to hire my doubters to clean my office, a simple act that had somehow catalyzed a cascade of change throughout our community. This became even clearer during Redfield's annual Small Business Awards ceremony, where I had been asked to deliver the keynote address. Looking out at the audience filled with entrepreneurs at various stages of their journeys, I reflected on the power of turning mockery into motivation. "The most valuable currency in business isn't money," I told them. "It's a belief. Belief in your vision when no one else can see it. Belief in your capacity to overcome obstacles. And perhaps most importantly, belief in your ability to transform skepticism into support." I shared the story of Chainlink's unconventional beginning, how the family members who had laughed at my unemployment had become integral to my success, how hiring them to clean my office had been both a practical necessity and a psychological strategy, how witnessing my determination firsthand had changed their perspective in ways that words alone never could. "When people doubt your vision," I concluded, "don't waste energy trying to convince them with arguments. Show them through action. Involve them in your journey. Give them a stake in your success. Sometimes, the people who begin as your greatest skeptics become your most powerful advocates." After the ceremony, a young woman approached me, clutching a business plan in a worn folder. "Ms. Taylor," she began hesitantly, "your speech really resonated with me. My family thinks I'm crazy for wanting to start a sustainable fashion brand instead of taking a corporate job. They say there's no market for eco-friendly clothing in a town like Redfield." Her situation echoed mine so closely that I couldn't help but smile. "What's your name?" "Jessica Drake." "Well, Jessica, do any of your family members know how to sew? Or handle retail sales? Or manage social media?" She looked confused. "My mom was a seamstress before she became a teacher. My sister majors in marketing. My dad managed a department store for 20 years before it closed." "Perfect," I said. "I think you know exactly what your next step should be." The knowing smile that spread across her face told me she understood. As Chainlink approached its 6th anniversary, I reflected on the concept of legacy. Traditional definitions focused on what you leave behind: wealth, buildings, institutions that bear your name. But I had come to view legacy differently. It wasn't about monuments or money. It was about transformation, the positive changes you catalyze in people and communities that continue to ripple outward long after you're gone. This perspective informed my most ambitious project yet, the Chainlink Foundation for Entrepreneurial Innovation. Funded with 10% of our annual profits and housed in a converted warehouse in downtown Redfield, the foundation provided resources, mentorship, and seed funding to entrepreneurs whose ideas might otherwise never see the light of day. DATH, Foundation's flagship program, appropriately named Clean Slate, offered grants to unemployed individuals with promising business concepts. Recipients received not just funding, but comprehensive support, office space, technical assistance, mentorship from Chainlink executives, and connections to our network of clients and partners. The program's first cohort included 15 entrepreneurs. From diverse backgrounds, each with a unique vision, there was Michael Chen, developing assistive technology for people with disabilities; Aisha Washington, creating culturally responsive educational materials. Jason Miller, designing modular furniture for small living spaces. Each had been unemployed or underemployed before joining Clean Slate. Each had faced doubt from family or friends about their entrepreneurial ambitions. During their orientation, I shared Chainlink's origin story, emphasizing the transformative power of involving skeptics. In your journey, your families may doubt you now, I told them, but with the right approach, they can become your greatest allies. 6 months into the program, we held a showcase event where participants demonstrated their progress. The warehouse buzzed with energy as entrepreneurs presented prototypes, business models, and early customer feedback. Family members who had once expressed skepticism now proudly staffed demonstration booths, explained concepts to visitors, and actively participated in their loved ones' visions. Michael's mother, who had initially begged him to apply for real jobs, now managed customer relations for his assistive technology startup. Aisha's husband, who had questioned the market for diverse educational materials, had quit his corporate job to handle the operational side of her rapidly growing business. Jason's father, once dismissive of fancy furniture nobody needs, had become a skilled craftsman producing prototypes in his garage workshop. As I moved through the showcase, witnessing these transformations, I felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The cycle that had begun with my own family was continuing, expanding, touching more lives with each iteration. The final presentation of the evening came from Jessica Drake, whose sustainable fashion brand, Second Nature, had evolved from concept to reality in record time. Her collection of eco-friendly, locally produced clothing had already garnered attention from regional retailers. None of this would have been possible without my family, she explained to the audience, gesturing to her mother, sister, and father, who stood nearby. Mom designs and creates samples, Dad handles supplier relationships, and my sister manages our marketing. They didn't believe in my vision at first, but once I hired them to help set up our studio, she caught my eye and smiled, acknowledging our shared strategy. Once they became part of the process, everything changed. Now we're not just building a business. We're rebuilding our family legacy. After the showcase, as the crowd dispersed and the entrepreneurs packed up their displays, I found myself alone in the center of the warehouse. The space hummed with the lingering energy of dreams taking shape, of skepticism transformed into support, of individual visions becoming collective realities. 5 years earlier, I had been unemployed, doubted, and mocked by those closest to me. I had hired them to clean my office out of both necessity and strategy, never imagining the cascading effects that simple decision would trigger. Now I stood at the center of an expanding web of transformation. Chainlink's success had inspired Blake's venture, which had influenced Ellie's path, which had affected Tara's choices. The ripples had reached Zoe, then Jessica, then the 15 entrepreneurs of Clean Slate, each creating their own impact on families, employees, and communities. My phone buzzed with a text from Uncle Matt. Heading home. Incredible event. Remember when we thought success meant proving the doubters wrong? Turns out it's about proving them into believers. I smiled, tucking the phone back into my pocket. He was right, as he often was these days. True success wasn't measured in silencing critics or accumulating wealth or even building innovative companies. It was measured in transformation, in turning mockery into motivation, doubt into dedication, and skepticism into support. My name is Melissa Taylor. 5 years ago, my family laughed that I was still jobless, so I hired them all to clean my new office. Today, we're all building something larger than ourselves, creating ripples of change that will continue long after we're gone. And it all began with a bucket, a mop, and the courage to involve my doubters in my journey. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.